Welcome. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of the Downtown San Diego Partnerships Board of Directors, Officers, and Founders Circles members, thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Chanelle Hawkins, Vice President of Government and Public Affairs at Cox Communications in California, and I'm very proud to be current chair of the Downtown Partnerships Board of Directors. We couldn't be more thrilled to have you here to talk about the economic drivers of our region and how those drivers impact the economic prosperity of our downtown. With that theme in mind, we thought it was a perfect time to also invite you to our inaugural economic development trip coming up this June, Discovering Downtown Denver. If you haven't already, there's still time to reserve your spot. It's occurring June 1st through 3rd. I think we're all excited to get out of our homes. We have a packed agenda with happy hours, breakfast, tours, and compelling discussions on urban planning. We have a save the date that Caitlin and Catherine will leave in the chat, but please again, mark your calendars for June 1st through 3rd. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to our Downtown Partnership President and CEO, Betsy Brennan. Welcome, Betsy.
Thanks so much, Chanelle. As we start the new year, I couldn't be more excited for the future of downtown. So many things are on the horizon for our urban neighborhoods. For example, we recently launched the Downtown Innovation Center, a game-changing tool for tenant attraction, retention, and economic development in the downtown market. The Innovation Center uses powerful technology alongside data, visuals, and interactive features to give future tenants and investors a preview of the live, work, play atmosphere that awaits them in downtown San Diego. And we're also in the final stages of completing our 2021 downtown demographic study that will be released next month. The information included in this study will allow us to better understand who lives, works, and plays downtown, and better address some of the challenges we face as a downtown and as a region. A few high-level insights from the report. 72% of downtown households are non-families. That means they're young urban professionals, with 41% in management positions, business science, or the arts industries. The average income of downtown residents is 11% higher than the regional income. Job losses in 2020 erased gains in the downtown area from the previous 4 years. Flush with cash, tech and life science companies are looking to expand quickly, with 3% job growth in professional, scientific, and technical services from 2015 to 2020. We are hopeful that many of those positions will be from people in our very own region, and we can lift up our entire economy. 73% of downtown residents dine out at least 1 to 2 times a week. There's 37,000 residents living in downtown, and if 73% of them are dining out 1 to 2 times per week, you can see the real economic impact of our residential downtown neighborhoods. We're very, very excited that we partnered with EDC on this study, and we can't wait to release more results to you next month. But the excitement doesn't stop with downtown. Today's roundtable will highlight the industries and main economic drivers contributing to the success of our region. Thank you to all of our Founders Circle members for being here today. We appreciate your continued support of our very wonderful downtown San Diego partnership. And with that, I would like to get started on this panel. Just one moment, because my screen has changed and I want to make sure I have all of my information and I give everybody credit for today. So leading us through the panel discussion this morning is Christina Bibler, Director of Economic Development for the City of San Diego. Christina is an amazing advocate for all of us in downtown San Diego. As director, Christina leads the city's efforts for business expansion, corporate partnerships, community development, successor agency real estate assets. To all of you, that means the Civic San Diego assets are now in Christina's shop in economic development in the city of San Diego, and affordable housing projects. Over the past 2 decades, Christina has focused on building high-performing teams, leading change, and creating innovative programs that bring economic prosperity for the business improvement districts in San Diego, and in Colorado, and in Carlsbad, California. We're really, really pleased to have Christina in this role as the Director of Economic Development for the City of San Diego, and I am happy to turn it over to Christina.
Thank you, Betsy. And I'm so pleased to be here this morning with all of you. And what an important topic. San Diego's economy is dominated by three major sectors: defense, our largest concentration of military in the world; tourism, which is built upon our region's binational geography and culture; and innovation, stemming from an unsurpassed intellectual capital and our talented workforce. With these three major economic drivers playing a key role in the success of our economies in the country, which includes south of the border, that's 7 million people and a regional GDP of 250 billion with a B. I'd like to just take a moment and share with you some of the successes. My department is supporting Mayor Gloria's plan to foster regional prosperity by deploying tens of millions of dollars into small business and nonprofits and neighborhoods. And more specifically, downtown, we are re-envisioning the East Village Quarter, AKA Tailgate Park. We are also creating more affordable housing, as Betsy said, workforce housing, and assisting in millions of square feet coming to our office tenants. So we're excited to engage in the conversation with you today and the following leaders that are going to be shared on our panel to share their thoughts and insights. So today we are joined by Rear Admiral Stephen Barnett. He's the commander of Navy Region Southwest; by Professor Michael Meyer with UC San Diego's Rady School of Management; Julie Coker, President and CEO of the San Diego Tourism Authority; Derek Matteo, Vice President of Global Marketing and Mainstay Medical; and Neil Bloom, Managing Partner and founder of Interlock Capital, founder of Fresh Brewed Tech and Fresh Squeeze Tech, and CEO of Rising Tide Partners. So at this time, I'd actually like to ask each of the panelists to share who you are and a little bit about your company organization and maybe a fast fact about the industry you have on the economy. So let me start with Rear Admiral Barnett. Sir?
Well, good morning. I hope everyone is doing well. Christina, can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Well, like you mentioned, I think you stole my thunder. I am in the Navy. You can tell by the uniform and the planes behind me here. So I wanted to say good morning. The region is based right here in downtown San Diego. I'll talk a little bit about that later. I'm a naval flight officer by training, and I've spent a significant portion of my career right here in the lovely city of San Diego. And I've been doing things like either flying or flying in squadrons. I was attached to some ships here, and I was also the commanding officer of Naval Base Coronado. So just a little bit about the region here. Our region is responsible for managing all the Navy bases and shore infrastructure, Navy shore infrastructure in 6 states. That's Arizona, California, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and Utah. And within that area, I have actually 10 Navy installations and then 17 Navy Reserve Centers. 3 of those bases are right here in the metro area, and I think we're familiar with them. Naval Base San Diego down in South Bay, Naval Base Coronado right over on North Island, and then Naval Base Point Loma, which we call the sub base. And that includes the Harbor Drive area and also the Old Town campus, which will come up a little bit later. Our job is to manage, like I said, all the infrastructure, all the piers, the runways, the power plants, housing, childcare services, all the fleet and family quality of life things for our sailors and our civilians and their families. So the issues that drive the organizations across the metro San Diego area, things like housing, childcare, COVID, density and development, transportation, traffic, support for veterans and environmental justice are the same exact issues that we have in the Navy. And I don't want to steal from Professor Meyer's thunder, but it's important to note that 17% of the Navy's active duty force is stationed right here in San Diego. And like Christina said, when you add our Marine Corps brothers and sisters and the civilians that work there, we are the largest fleet concentration area in the United States. Our goal is to be, and when I say our, I mean then in the Navy's goal is to be part of this conversation and a positive force on all of these issues. I look forward to being part of the panel, and I'll be standing by for your questions. Thanks, and as always, fly Navy.
Thank you, Rear Admiral. I'd like to ask Julie to do the same. Tell us who you are, tell us about your organization, and a fast fact about your industry.
So good morning, everyone. Thrilled to be with you. Julie Coker, President and CEO of the San Diego Tourism Authority. And to sum it up, I have the best job because I get to sell this scene that's behind me. So from that standpoint, it's always a great day here in San Diego. But we're a 501c6 organization, and really our mission is to drive visitor demand to the destination, and therefore the destination economically benefits. That's really what we do in a nutshell. And our vision is really to be the leading destination in the country. And certainly we know that we have all of the assets to do that. Just to put it in perspective, our fiscal year 19 budget was $47 million. Like many industries, we came to a screeching halt in March of 2020, and our budget dropped to about $26 million. We are funded primarily through a tax that is assessed on hotel rooms, hotels that are greater than 70 rooms or more. So essentially, out-of-town visitors that are staying in hotels pay a tax or an assessment that then we're funded from. And we are funded by the San Diego Tourism Marketing District. And we also get our funding from membership as well as advertising. So that kind of makes up our full budget. And really our charge and responsibility is to put San Diegans to work. And we did that very well prior to COVID-19. We had over 200,000 travel related jobs. During the, I'll say high mark of COVID, we lost 70,000 jobs. We are inching our way up, and we are about 165,000 jobs now. And we hope to see that continue to increase, I should say. What's important about those jobs is that prior to COVID, our jobs were 1 in 8 jobs in San Diego County. And 53% of tourism employees earn a middle-class salary or higher. So we employ those folks that are building their neighborhoods, they're putting their children through college, they're helping their children start their own businesses, purchase their own homes. Those folks are coming out of our tourism industry. And what's even more important about the jobs that we generate is they can't be exported overseas. They cannot be outsourced. So they're right here in San Diego, and we're proud to be a part of that. We essentially focus on 3 types of visitors for the most part. It's that business visitor, which is also a convention visitor. We focus on international visitors. So we are the face of San Diego overseas to attract visitors to come to the US. And then we drill down farther and say, come to California, even farther, spend all of your time in San Diego. And then of course, as we all know, leisure is our, I'll say our bread and butter in terms of San Diego. So looking forward to the discussion, certainly much better times ahead. And can't wait to talk about how great San Diego is, and more importantly, how great San Diego will be.
Thank you, Julie. And I see that the team has put together some fast facts and dropped that into the chat. So make sure you have an opportunity to check that out. Now I'd like to have Professor Mike Meyer introduce himself, give us a fast fact, and talk about his role.
Morning. So Admiral Barnett is a tough act to follow. You saw Admiral, I see you there surrounded by F-18s. I'm here surrounded by sticky notes, which is not nearly as exciting, but they are the weapons of my profession. Hello, my name is Michael Meyer. I'm a professor here at the Rady School of Management, which is the business school at the University of California, San Diego. In fact, I am a professor of design at the business school, which to most people is just a bizarre combination, but it reflects our understanding that there is unique value in this combination of design and business. And you see that reflected in people like me. I teach both in our undergraduate design curriculum. I teach the foundational course, Design 1, which is basically freshman design. And also in the Lab to Market capstone innovation track here in our MBA program, which is our kind of flagship degree program at the business school. And that really reflects what is unique about the business school here at University of California, San Diego, that we take a data-driven approach to management, and innovation is a central focus of our approach to management. I also lead the team that conducts the annual Military Economic Impact Report in partnership with our good friends over at the San Diego Military Advisory Council. I'll put the homepage for that report up in chat. We'll talk in more depth about that, but if there are two numbers that you take away from the military impact portion of our conversation today, I think that they should be these. $55.2 billion, which is the contribution to San Diego's gross regional product from defense-related activity here in the region, and 349,000 jobs, which is the number of jobs that are created and supported by military activity here in the San Diego region. And we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure.
Staggering numbers. Thank you for sharing that right off the bat. Appreciate it. And getting into a business perspective, I would like to introduce Derek Matteo and have him talk a little bit about his organization and a fast fact. Derek.
Thanks for having me here. Appreciate the time. So my name is Derek Matteo. I'm the Vice President of Global Marketing here at Mainstay Medical. I didn't get the memo. Everybody's got cool backgrounds. I have a poster, I think, from, it must have been in elementary school or junior high that I brought in here. But I think it speaks to the global nature, I guess, of our business and what we're trying to do here. My job specifically, orchestrating basically our research departments, also our traditional marketing, as you would think of marketing, advertising, and ultimately our medical education programs to try and proliferate this new medical technology that we're trying to bring to market. It truly is a new class of, if I can give you the elevator pitch of what Mainstay is. We're trying to essentially bring neurostimulation, but rather than just masking pain symptoms, which has been done, and there's good therapies out there for it, we're truly trying to restore musculature of the lower spine, thereby reducing pain. The pain is a byproduct. So I'm very excited to try and bring this new technology to the market. We are moving the headquarters here to, I guess we should say, we had moved the headquarters here to San Diego. Our CEO was formerly from NuVasive, and then previous to that was in Amsterdam, came over, and obviously, some big opportunities in the San Diego area. Specifically, we're down Little Italy off of India and Ivy. As far as the market goes, if you think of the spine fusion market is roughly a $9 billion market. That would include companies that are local to the area like AlphaTech, NuVasive, C-Spine. There's several of those bigger organizations, several of which many of us have worked at in the past. That is about a $9 billion market. And, without getting into patient indications, roughly, 18 billion is potentially the market for the patient population that this new therapy could treat. Really excited to be downtown here or down Little Italy, close to the airport. There's just a lot of pauses. We fly, surgeons and physicians from around the world in here to train them. And it's certainly great just to be, close and local to the area. I guess just a fun fact, we just, like I said, purchased this new space down here is 23,000 square feet, and just looking forward to building it out. We expect to grow very rapidly over the next several years, as we just got our FDA approval last year, and we just got product in June of 2021. So again, right now we are in the US, of course. We're in Germany, we're in Australia, looking to go into the UK. And then from there, we'll continue to build out kind of a regulatory pathway. So I'm excited to be here, and thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we're excited that you're here as well. Congrats on getting the product about 6 months ago. We look forward to hearing a little bit more. I'd like to call on Neil Bloom to introduce himself and give us his elevator pitch and a fast fact, which I know he has many.
Thanks so much. It's so great to be amongst this diverse group representing San Diego. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I actually got my start in entrepreneurship in downtown with the downtown incubator Evo Nexus, which used to be at Front and Broadway. And that was my dip into the startup ecosystem, which quickly from there grew into a grassroots effort, now nonprofit, called Startup San Diego, which puts on a yearly conference pre-COVID, about 3,000 people or so, to really inspire people to take the leap and start the company, or to take the leap and work for a startup company. Both are risky, and we've created a group of resources and community that really helps people get comfortable and do it when it's ready, when there's a business case for it. Startup San Diego is made up of a board of about 15 or 20 local community leaders and entrepreneurs. I started a company in the ed tech space called Portfolium that really helps students map out their career pathways during college. We eventually sold that to a larger ed tech company. And I started a tech blog and podcast about the San Diego tech ecosystem called Fresh Brewed Tech, just because I'm so passionate about making sure everyone's aware of what's happening in our tech community. So we put out a twice a week podcast with an interview, and then on Fridays, the latest tech news of the ecosystem. And I started angel investing, which is now turned into formal venture capital investing. And I've got a fund called Interlock Capital that we're growing. It's made up of about 260 local entrepreneurs and tech operators who are pooling our cash together to invest in other entrepreneurs. So really passionate about helping new companies get off the ground, especially as we've seen that new job creation almost entirely comes from new company creation. And so we're very much passionate about helping make sure we create a whole bunch of new companies. So a few fast facts. Last year, we just put out a report on Fresh Brewed Tech, which I can drop in the chat, about the 2021 kind of tech report. We saw over $9 billion in investment dollars come into San Diego County area. While a lot of it largely was for later stage companies, meaning companies who we used to say have been at it for 10 years. There's been some companies that raised over 100 million in 1 year from start, which is a new fast fact. I've seen the fastest I've seen in a year, but also from an early stage company perspective. So companies who got pretty much their first round of funding. There was 96 companies who raised their first round of funding in San Diego, totaling over 244 million in capital, which is pretty incredible to have that round of funding for brand new companies. That bodes well over the next 10 years for us as these companies mature, grow. Sure, they'll exit, maybe they'll go public, which will just recycle back into the community through new companies, new jobs as well too. So we're excited to see that flywheel kind of start to close the loop and spin a little faster. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing some of that. Now I'd like to ask a few questions of all of the panelists. So if we could have their cameras on, and perfect. Okay. So this is going to be an opportunity for you to, jump in if something sparks your interest and you want to share. But let me lead off by saying, all of these industries, defense, tourism, and the innovation economy really represent both growth and entrepreneurship in a variety of different ways, but every industry has been impacted. And so I'd love to know what some of the resilience efforts that you've taken since the pandemic, and I open that up to the group. Who'd like to go first?
I'll start from a tourism standpoint, because when I accepted the job in February of 2020, it was a completely different start of June of 2020 when I arrived. And we were one of the hardest hit industries. I've never in my 30+ career seen padlocks on hotels, and there were absolutely no guests. As we recall, restaurants were completely shut down. And I was on the East Coast at the time. And when I left, they weren't even allowed to do takeout. And so just a really devastating. I think we did an excellent job showing that we could be resilient. I think the initial thought was that it was going to mirror 9/11, because obviously that hit our industry hard too. But we quickly realized that that was completely not the same, because we were dealing more obviously with the disease, and we were dealing more with fear. And so it was a completely different field than 9/11. So what we did do is we leaned into what people wanted to hear. And that was, how, if I come and I travel and I bring my family, how can I be safe? And so we immediately had our hotels, our restaurants, our attractions put together, and certainly huge shout out to Gary and the county guiding us through that in terms of signage and how to communicate, because remember, this was before the vaccine. So stressing the physical distance, social distance, stressing the mask wearing, washing of the hands, and so forth. And we reminded them that in hospitality, our hotels were already trained in cleanliness. That was already a part of restaurant standards. You know, they are checked often by county and city officials to make sure that they're following guidelines. So we really leaned into that. And then we also leaned into the science to help our meeting planners to say, could we gather at 10? Could we gather at 20? What's the appropriate number? As we all know on the call, we weren't able to hold organized meetings until June of 21, which in hindsight was probably the right decision because California has come back stronger. But from a resiliency standpoint, I fast forward to the summer of 21, we had an outstanding summer. There were weeks in July and August and June where occupancy topped fiscal year, calendar year 19 numbers. We held rate, so we were smart about not discounting because that wasn't driving demand. Just because a room was $59 doesn't mean that someone was going to come because they were still concerned about COVID. So why sell it for $59? So we made some really smart decisions there. But the other thing, and I'm sure everyone else would agree, is we really collaborated. So the restaurants were talking to the hotels and the hotels were talking to the attractions. And we were talking to everyone. And we were also talking to the county and the city and the state. And we reached out across to our gateway cities like Anaheim and San Francisco and LA. And what are you doing that's working? And how can we all do it with the efforts of bringing California back with our own focuses on our own destinations? But the stronger California is, the more then we can be competitive. And to that respect, we were obviously far behind Florida in their visitation rates. And I'm pleased to say, you know, by the end of 21, we had closed that gap because we did take longer and we were more, I would say, secure and safe before reopening. But now we're back into our footing, and we had excellent marketing programs when others weren't able to talk about their destination. So those are just some of the things that we were able to do in tourism. And certainly once we get beyond this little bleep, we're going to have a fantastic 2022.
That's so true, what you said about partnerships and how important that is for resilience and kind of bridging that. And I want to broaden the question because I still want to hear some of the resilience efforts that you all taken since the pandemic. But please think about, you know, maybe sharing in your snippet some of the opportunities you've taken a rise. And one of the things Julie said kind of hit the nail on the head here was about partnerships. So anyone else want to share about the resiliency efforts?
Yeah, hi, this is Steve. I'll go ahead and just throw a couple of items out, kind of a combination between what was said, and I'll make it really quick with some other things. I had the unique opportunity, I don't know if it's an opportunity, that before I came here, I was the region commander for Northwest. So I was up in the Seattle area. So a lot of the same things that I saw on the West Coast up north were the same here. That said, some of the resiliency things that we had to do, the ships still have to go to sea, they still have to be repaired. The planes still have to fly. So we have a zero compromise mission, much like everybody else on the panel does too. So how do we get at that? We're not, one area that concerned me was the housing. How do we do our housing issues? How do we safely send sailors to sea? The cleaning regimen on the ship is actually pretty good. How do we take care of the little treasures, of the little kids that go to our child development centers? You know, we can't close those down because if we close those down, then those sailors or civilians can't work because they have to stay home and take care of their kids. So we had a lot of opportunity there. I'll tell you, we found some weaknesses. I used to tell everyone that, and I still tell them, COVID has forced you, whether you know it or not, into one of two areas. You're either in a cocoon or you're either in a cave. So when you come out of COVID, if you're in a cave, obviously you haven't learned anything. It's still the same old stuff, and you're going to come out and wipe your face and go back to what you're doing. But I would like to think that we've been in a cocoon. We're going to come out a little bit better than when we went in. We found some weaknesses. One of the weaknesses that we found was our IT structure isn't where it needs to be. When you tell someone to telework in the military, a lot of times folks used to have towers, the old school towers. So that pushed us there. The other thing that it made us change is our HR mentality. How do we recruit? How do we do HR for our civilians? Because two industries, HR and our money and our monetary side, we could telework those, but a lot of our jobs we can't telework for our civilians. You know, the port still has to use the tugs. You know, we still need our air traffic controller. So, and what I found out was about 70% of our workforce could not telework. They had to be there, but about 30% could. So it definitely pushed us to a different level, but I think we're a better and a more agile force for it. I tell people that there's a difference between resiliency and toughness. Resiliency implies that you've broken, and I think COVID did break us. But toughness is the day-to-day stuff, the communications, the talking to a lot of the folks who are on the panel and learning from them. So we get that day-to-day toughness. So when the next wave comes, we have the policies, the procedures, the standard operating procedures that we can, you know, take from whether it's the tourism industry giving us some information on how we can run our hotels on base, how we can do it safely. So I think we've learned a lot.
Absolutely. And I wrote down that cocoon or cave. I find that visual incredibly helpful. So thank you for sharing that with us. Michael, would you like to share something? I saw you take yourself off mute.
Yes, I'd actually like to kind of add to what Admiral Barnett pointed out. You know, when we think about, and actually it's a slightly contrarian position to the question of what were the resilience measures, I would actually say that defense-related activity in this region is the resilience measure. If you think about it, with this zero shortfalls mission, you know, defense needs to happen regardless of circumstances. If you look at the nature of the investments that are made in the infrastructure and the operations around defense-related activities, that's a long-range planning effort, and it's a long-term investment effort. You can't turn those on or off on a quarter-by-quarter basis. And so the net impact of defense-related activity in this region has been one of mitigating the decline with the initial shock of COVID and actually accelerating the recovery as we came out of COVID. So intuitively that makes sense, but as I mentioned, you know, we are taking a data-driven approach to management. So let's look at the figures. If we look at the overall impact of the initial drop, the initial hit to the economy from COVID, and then the recovery, in fiscal year 2020, the San Diego region had an overall decline in gross regional product of 4.7%. If we remove the impact of defense activity, that would have been a decline of 7.7%. So almost double the impact. So military activity in this region really stabilized during that initial drop. And then in fiscal 2021, the overall region had a recovery, a gain of 4.2% in the gross regional product. But if we look at the non-defense sectors, that was only 3.8%. So not only did we mitigate the hit, but we also accelerated or boosted the recovery. Part of that comes from the kind of the interesting nature of defense-related activity. When we look at what the military actually spends here in San Diego, it's only about $35.3 billion of direct spending, payrolls, contracting for services, buying equipment, that sort of thing. There's this thing called the multiplier effect, that every time we place an order for something or we hire somebody, that supports all of the activities that need to support what the military has purchased. And for every dollar that the military spends in the region, it creates about $1.54 of net impact on our gross regional product. So the multiplier impact in 2021 was $19.9 billion. So it's not just the direct defense related industries that benefit from the stabilizing influence. It's all of the businesses in the San Diego region. So that's what leads me to say that I actually think that defense activity here is one of the resilience measures.
That's a great point to make, and very true in the sense that irrespective of pandemic or natural disaster, the military is always on duty, and that is ever present here in San Diego and in the region. And before we move on, there were a couple of things that you all talked about relative to resiliency and opportunity. It had to do with talent. And so I just wanted to maybe coalesce the whole discussion and talk about, how those efforts and opportunities, how have we seen those trends related to hiring and talent and staff challenges also impact these movements towards, towards growth and recovery? Neil?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think what's interesting on the innovation side, if you look at the two buckets of tech and biotech, both have done very well, and almost unfortunate because of the pandemic, have completely grown because of the need for tech and the need for innovation in biotech. But a few destabilizing things happened. Tech immediately didn't need real estate, right? And so just en masse pulled out of a lot of commercial real estate projects, though biotech did the opposite and needed so much more space. And now we're seeing an explosion of biotech in downtown, as well as across the county. So it's almost like biotech has taken up the slack for the lack of tech real estate. But on the talent side also, the same thing happened too. Tech said, oh, immediately, if we don't need office, people can work from anywhere. Let's fill our roles quickly with people from anywhere. But in talking to companies across the country and comparing them to San Diego, I haven't seen so many companies in where they said, we would rather you be in San Diego. And even if we're hiring you to be remote, know that there is an option for you to always come and move to San Diego and come back to home base. That I have not seen that offer to other places, meaning that San Diego companies plan to stay here and plan to continue to root here and have a presence, even if it is a little bit smaller headquarters than it was pre-pandemic because the population size is lower. So that part's been great, that there is always this condition that we are a San Diego company and we want to make sure that you are a part of a San Diego company too, even if you're abroad. So that's been great in that regard from a talent perspective.
Derek, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I totally want to echo those comments. Certainly here, we have a little bit of a unique perspective. So our organization, Mainstay Medical, has largely been, research and engineering for the last 12 years. It's only been since basically COVID was around that we had commercialization efforts go on. So that's why we're moving the headquarters here, and we're going to base everything out of San Diego. But we did have some of that where, folks wanted to live in different parts of the country. We are trying to relocate everyone back to San Diego, I guess I should say, back to and to San Diego. It actually has helped us in some ways because it's bridged maybe a year or so of being able to work a little bit more remotely, virtually, and get that transition time to have people come back into the San Diego area. So I would echo that. And then also, I think Julie brought up a couple points just about the flexibility. And I frankly think in some ways we've been able to be a little bit more efficient just from COVID overall. It's more socially acceptable. We deal and work with a lot of different surgeons and physicians, like I mentioned. A lot of times you had to make that specific trip out to their location. Now it's socially acceptable to have a call, and that's not seen as something that maybe is informal, or that you're not giving them your best effort. So in some ways, I think it's very much helped us. In other ways, like in the commercialization effort, it's been a challenge to try and build sales teams and build the company during COVID. But certainly those things I mentioned, flexibility and using technology to be a little bit more efficient has helped.
Absolutely. And we've seen that in government. I mean, prior to the pandemic, would you have said, let's go ahead and have government work from home? But at the same point, I was going to say trash is still being picked up. That might be a sore issue to bring up at this point. But, the water is still running and services are still being provided. And it's really changing that dynamic and that conversation about how people can thrive and work in a different environment and be challenged and inspired by that. So I wonder, have any of your industries taken on some of this creativity into hiring and attracting talent? Have there been signing bonuses or, you know, a permanent hybrid schedule, permanent work from home? Tell me a little bit about some of the changes you've seen in these industries and what you're adapting to.
Yeah, from our perspective, you know, hotels, for example, are open 24/7, and that's just the reality. However, it also provides an opportunity for us to, as Derek said, be flexible with schedules. And so I think in the past, we've had this structure of it has to be 8 hours, 8:30 to 4:30, and, you know, 4 o'clock is the new shift and 11 o'clock is the next one. And that's not necessarily working for some folks. So do we have some that work from 7 to 3? Do we have some that come in and work 10 to 6, whatever that looks like? Is it maybe a 6-hour shift as opposed to an 8-hour shift because someone needs to go pick up their children or their spouse, you know, whatever that looks like? The other thing that we've done is we've really taken an honest look at what jobs in our industry can work remotely and be effective. And I think, you know, when I was a general manager, whatever it was 20 years ago, you had to see everyone to make sure that they were selling, like it was this FaceTime. No, it doesn't. You have a goal, you have a quota. I didn't care if you made it on the roof, whatever, as long as you made your number. And that's what we've had to start doing, is we've had to trust that people are, even though they're sitting in their homes, they are just as productive. And we also know, unfortunately, those that are working from home oftentimes are working more than if they were in the office. And that's just another piece in terms of mental health and well-being that we'll need to address. But we definitely know that folks can be, you know, they can be productive from home. And then the other is just job sharing. We've had to look at that as well. You know, what does that look like in terms of cross-training? Some of our hotels have looked at area jobs, and that's not to reduce the workforce, but it's something that we've had to do interim until we can get folks back to work. The other thing is our industry thrives on part-time work. You know, so some have, they have a day job, and then they, let's just say, they're a server in the evening, you know, for extra money, and they need a shift that's 3 or 4 hours. We're seeing that has declined. The number of Americans across the country that are doing second jobs now has dropped dramatically. And so that has, you know, impacted our workforce as well. But we're also leaning into technology, and, you know, it's okay to call a hotel and not have a live person answer, and go through the phone tree and get your information, you know, answered as you need be. So we're also evaluating through the customer experience, what are those touch points where we absolutely need human intervention? And then what are those touch points where we can use technology better? And then the last thing I'll say is that obviously we're working very closely with the unions, because, you know, they certainly are a strong workforce in hospitality here. And we want to make sure that we're partnering with them and that we can keep as many San Diegans working as possible. But we also have to meet the need and understand that we have a shortage. We still have about 30,000 folks that are not working in our industry yet. And we're not sure that they're going to come back, quite honestly.
Thank you, Julie. Would anyone else like to add?
I'll tell you that as you talk about that, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, you know, I'll just put it out there. Dylan, change comes hard for the government, you know, and when it does come, it doesn't come quickly. You just got to look at the building that I'm living in, that I'm working in now. So it took us forever to actually get that through the process. But I think one thing that it's done for us is it's forced us to make changes faster than we've done it previously, to think a little bit quicker. Some of the hybrid things that we're trying to think about doing, and I've seen this also from other Navy admirals in my similar position, coming up with a hoteling option. And by that, what we're saying is that, okay, you can work at home, you can telework, but when you do come in, we'll have an area set aside. You won't have your own cubicle. You may get a different one every time. It'll cycle around. But if you need to have meetings, also we have some, you know, sometimes we have to bring our computers in to get an IT jump, to get a patch. And then we do have classified systems that folks need to come in to check out. But one of the biggest areas where I found it, where I don't want to say it's difficult, but it's a change, is that kind of like Julie was saying, it's okay. And I call it the it's okay rule. Supervisors have to know how to be okay with leading people who they may not see a lot of. You know, the first assumption should be, you're not working at work, so you're goofing off. That's not it, So that's been the thing, is how do we train our leaders and our supervisors to lead and supervise in this new environment? I want to say it's never easy to supervise, but when someone is there, you can always stick your head around and see what they're doing. But then how do you have those water cooler moments or those cup of coffee moments, whether it's a virtual happy hour or just random things like that, to try to build that in esprit de corps?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I think it's a great comment. This has forced us to get better at goal creation and actually what we're shooting for. I think everybody always tries to, be goal oriented, or that's what you strive to do. And I don't know that we were doing that previously. Now, I mean, you're not always in the same room with various folks and even team members that you need to be. So having goals, having the clear communication, I think has been something that we've just been forced to improve upon, and hopefully get better. I do think there is still the intangible of the water cooler talk that was mentioned there. We still will come into the office, let's call it 2 to 3 times a week to bring everybody together, because you still need some of those meetings, right? So it's kind of keeping some of that flexibility. The one thing that hasn't been said yet is the fact that traffic, has improved dramatically. So again, going back to the efficiency, I think it's a positive when you set clear goals. Folks need to come in when they come in, and then they can leave. It's not the 9 to 5 element anymore. And you can pop in when you need to collaborate and have that water cooler talk, and then you can head back out. And the beautiful thing is, no matter what time you're leaving anymore, there's certainly less traffic on the road.
Absolutely. And that, I think, getting to how we have those conversations, how flexible we're being, also absolutely leads to the haves and the have-nots. How are we addressing, equity in all of these conversations? We're even doing it in my department. I will tell you right now that there is a intent to have a hybrid work schedule, again, for government, and equity is top of mind to make sure that we're not disadvantaging, one classification over another. But I'd love to know, through this conversation and being flexible and kind of thinking outside the box and the opportunity we have, how are you using this, kind of timeline to think about the future of diversity and equity in your industries?
I'm happy to jump in real quick. From the tech world, there's always been this sense of a bit of a, the haves and have-nots, those who either already have capital available to them to start a company versus not, or those who access to mentors or not. And I think the pandemic really, for San Diego, taught us a lot about bridge building between all the organizations that share information and resources with the community, because we now had to all be unified to say, hey, everyone, here's how you get PPP loans, right? And so there was this flow of here's how to help businesses in general of communications. And then there also was obviously a lack of accessibility from a physical events kind of thing as well. And so Startup San Diego took a look at all of the materials it produces and said, how can we not just do it in one new way, virtual, but what is every other aspect that we could convert information into to bring it to communities that might not have it. That's both from a geo. So we looked at how could we have things in Spanish and things for south of the border, when normally they would have taken the trolley up to say certain events. How could we look at time of day in terms of the actual events that were happening virtually and make sure that that they're recorded and those kinds of things as well. So I think accessibility was number one, was take a good look at ourselves of who are we communicating to? Is it only communicating to this as opposed to everyone? And then sharing that communication with other people and saying, you should do the same. We'll make sure we share each other's communication as well too. Now that we've seen the tech world do almost really well with a lot of flow of capital, now what's great to see is this emphasis, and the city of San Diego honestly has led this before COVID, is put in focus on the people who wouldn't normally get access to business resources and put that in their locations themselves. The Connect All for San Diego incubator has been an amazing flow of a place for people to come, not just to get into the event, to the incubator, but to know where to get resources and get help from people who've now been trained by pros of incubators as well too. And so we've loved supporting that. And I hope there's a lot more of those incubators coming up down the road, Christina.
Thank you for mentioning that. Connect All at the Jacobs Center is a very proud moment for the city, and we're happy to be a part of that type of growth for entrepreneurs. I have one more question, but I'd like to just see if anyone else would like to share based on the last conversation about, yes, Julie, take yourself off mute.
Sure. So D&I obviously is extremely important to us from a standpoint of our membership base. We have over 1,000 members with the Tourism Authority, but then also to our customers. So it's important that the destination reflect the customers that we attract, whether it be meetings and conventions, leisure or international. And so that was extremely important to us and always has been. This year, we're proud to launch our Tourism Accelerator program. We have a cohort of 10 businesses that are diverse in nature. Either it's a minority-owned business, it's a women-owned business, it's a veteran-owned business, or it's an LGBTQ business. And we specifically identified businesses that are not members of the Tourism Authority, but have an opportunity to benefit from our industry. And we're going to offer them what I would say is wraparound services. So SDG&E and Bank of America are the sponsors, but we're going to offer them legal advice. UCSD is going to provide a certification program. We have other board members that have stepped up to offer mentoring. Procopia is going to offer legal services. We are going to offer them complimentary advertising on our website. So now they have more exposure to leisure and international and convention businesses that are coming in. And we're going to work with them for a year and really kind of wrap our arms around them so that they can take advantage of this $1 million industry that's right here in San Diego. And these are not new startups. Some of them are, but they've been here for 10, 12 years, but haven't known necessarily how to tap into our industry and to take full advantage of it. And we specifically chose underserved markets because we know sometimes they don't have the access or the means to be able to participate on a playing level field. And so we want to make sure that we are offering that. And we made sure that the organizations that we chose are also diverse in where they are. So they're in different neighborhoods, that will take advantage of a Convoy District, Logan Barrios. So we're really excited about that program. And then our goal is to move that from 10 cohort to 25 and then continue from there. So, and that has come out of this opportunity because we didn't feel as though we were doing enough with our DEI efforts. And as I always say, they need to be intentional and they need to be measurable. So we're looking forward to this program taking off.
I love that. I love the innovation that's come out of trying to meet the need for those that have not been historically able to access. So wonderful, wonderful, Julie. Yes, Rear Admiral.
Just really quick, as we talk about DEI, I want to say that over the past 2 years, the Navy has made some significant changes to try to closely resemble the nation that we all serve. So things like uniform and grooming policies, promotion boards, we've made some changes on there, how we review those things, and focused recruiting efforts are things that we're trying to do to have a more inclusive force. I spent a lot of my time on DEI and events and evolutions to try to get that point across. One other thing I like to say is that I have a DEI team, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And one thing that we were able to jump into was using a SIBR, a Small Business Innovative and Research Grant, or some type of sponsorship to where we've actually got we're working with someone to pilot a web-based mentorship program. So we can, and I'm taking a brief, I think later today on it, but it looks pretty neat. And this was started by a junior officer, someone that's probably, 25 years, 30 years younger than I am, that is able to kind of walk me through this process about how we can take DEI to where it is needed. So that's always a focus. And in particularly, I like to stress to my installation CEOs, particularly here in the metro area, that we are in a diverse part of the country. And we need to make sure that we are having the inroads, whether it's working with the affinity groups, to show that, that we wear uniforms for half the day, but the other half of the day, we're civilians too. And there's ways that they can both work together.
Yeah, that's really important. I was just going to say, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and your briefing later to hear all of those fun details. That may be something we're going to ask you to come back and share with us.
Easy. Thank you. Not a problem.
Great. Well, I'd like to be able to get to a couple of specific questions to each of you, but let me wrap up this all panel question by just recognizing that our listeners are representative of downtown San Diego. And so my question to all of you is, what role can downtown and its stakeholders play in alleviating some of these obstacles to success in the San Diego market, and as it specifically relates to downtown? So that's open to all of you if anyone would like to jump in.
I'll jump in here. And actually the Admiral and I were talking off in a chat here about the potential for collaboration when diverse groups mingle, right? So we're going to have sailors and scientists mingling on his property. What's going to happen? Like, how exciting for the ideas of collaboration that are going to come from just a simple coffee around that. I think the openness to that in downtown is pretty impressive for the now, especially biotech being there, plus tech and everything else. This opportunity to have some of San Diego's staple industries collaborating, and same with innovation on tourism as well too. Like, that's something, one, we should be cheering and communicating, that all these industries are coming together, and then making sure that people are open to having the diverse conversations of what are we like when we're better together. That comes in real estate, right? So having flexibility of space that allows different groups to populate, that allows having open space where people can actually have those random bumping intos that we used to have pre-COVID. And then just the opportunity for the city and others to say, yes, let's fund something that is new and different. And so I think San Diegans are used to that, and I'm excited to do that again.
Thank you.
For me, I'll take it from a visitor's lens. Obviously, we're always advocating for, regardless of their purpose of trip, again, whether it's an international meeting, convention, or leisure. We all know the priorities right now, obviously, is for them to stay safe. So certainly the work that we've done around vaccination and boost, and it really doesn't matter whether you're Republican, Democrat, or independent. The bottom line to a visitor is they want to know that the destination's safe. And right now, destinations that have higher vaccination rates are where they're going to. That it just is what it is. It doesn't matter whether, we are questioning whether we should be vaccinated or not. For me, it's dollars and cents. I know visitors come to my destination because we've got an 87% vaccination rate. And the more that we tout that, the more that they'll come. So I'm all for it. And so one, I would say, is definitely downtown, making sure that we continue to promote our health and safety protocols. We would all like to stop talking about it, but we can't, because that's why visitors come. And that's why conventions will come. And that's why international folks will cross the border. The second thing is that we as a community need to continue to tackle homelessness. That is a barrier for visitors. It is obviously a concern just on a moral issue. No one wakes up in the morning and puts their hand in the air and says, I want to sleep on the street. No one. And so we as a community have to continue to wrap our arms around that. And we need to come up with real sustainable solutions, because that does impact whether a convention is going to come to your destination or visitors are going to come to the destination. And then the last would be cleanliness of downtown area. And certainly, we do an amazing job keeping the streets clean and safe. And that will always be a number one priority for visitors. That's their number one priority. Is if I'm going to spend my dollars and I'm going to come travel, I want to make sure that that destination I'm going to is just as safe as the destination that I left. And so as a community, that is a priority. That should be a priority, not only for us as residents, but also for those that we're trying to attract to come here for work or pleasure or play, or certainly meet and have a convention here.
Yeah, I completely agree with the convention portion of it. I'm excited to get back to that. Obviously, we have not Mainstay, but the MedTech community has, a large number of their annual meetings here in San Diego over the course of several years. So that's absolutely fantastic. I also echo the homeless issue. I I think San Diego does a better job than, comparatively than other cities, or at least that's perception. But I couldn't agree more. Like, it's still very much an issue and needs solutions to that. The mental health associated with that as well is certainly an issue. But with all things being said, I still think San Diego City does a better job with that. Just continue to look forward to improving that.
Absolutely. And as you are industry leaders, the city is always interested in your ideas and thoughts on how to collaborate, because it's not a one size fits all. It's absolutely making sure that we're trying on every level. So let me move to, in the 10 minutes that we have left, I'm going to ask you each one question that is industry specific to you. And Rear Admiral, you turned your camera off, but I was going to lead with you. Hopefully I can. I'd love to know, what the military's plan is in San Diego for growth over the next 5 years. Sir, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? You got
Yes.
me? Okay, got it. Yeah, I had let's just say I may have tripped over my cord here, but I think I'm good now. I've got another battery plugged in, so I got to back up. Yeah, so I think you were talking about what's the growth going to be here? What are we anticipating for the growth here in the area?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. First of all, I'd like to say that we're anticipating about 14% growth over the next few years here. And I know Professor Meyer is aware of this, but with that growth is obviously, going to come, like right now, we have 3 aircraft carriers that are actually home based here. One is away getting some work done on her. We have new platforms that are coming in, new ships that are coming. So I'm looking at about a 14% grow here. Now, that said, with that growth, what concerns me are some things that, how can we parlay that growth and still be good neighbors, particularly as it comes to equity. And I'm talking about, kind of like you mentioned, environmental equity. That's been a big thing on my mind. We're different than other installations, or we're different in other regions, because if you look at Norfolk or Hawaii, their installations are usually farther off at the end of a road. We're right smack dab in the middle of the city. So how are we going to be, how is that going to be an effective growth for all of us? As the professor mentioned, we are a shock absorber for the community when there's ups and downs, and we understand that, but there's ways that we can grow together. And I think that's what's important. Things like livability, traffic, air quality, public safety, all those things. The same problems that the mayor mentioned in the state of the city that he's having, we're going to have. Infrastructure, homelessness. I reached out to him last week. We chat a lot. I've got reps that can stand by to help the homeless veterans when they identify people that are veterans. So things like that. But we're going to grow. We are the largest. My friends on the East Coast do not like when I say that, so I'm going to say it twice because I know this is recorded. We are the biggest and the best. And what I like about it is we are a Navy community, and we don't need a day to tell us that, or a fleet week to tell us that. We are a Navy community because when we go and visit some of Julie's organizations down there, you got to look over and see the big Fly Navy or the big, or some of the ships that go back and forth. And we're glad to be part of it, and we're willing to grow together. So growth is coming, particularly as we have been pivoting to the Pacific. 26% of all U.S. jobs are tied to the sea. 90% of all global commerce occurs by the sea. I explained that to my daughter for years, but when she was at home in COVID college with us, it clicked with her when the ship got stuck in the Suez Canal, and her "oh my God" moment, Dad, was coffee's going to go up because I heard that coffee stuck on that ship. That was her big thing. And so then you fast forward and look at what happened off the coast here when we had all the ships that were caught up. That's why we're here. That was a non-bad guy person that did that. So imagine that if a bad person wanted to do something like that, of the effects it would have on the community. That's why we're here, and we're great partners.
Wonderful. And we're happy to learn about that 14% growth and however we can partner on that. I'm happy to learn that you are already speaking with my boss regularly. So good to know. So Professor Meyer, I'd like to ask you the next question, the overall impact of the defense industry and related activity in San Diego. Can you speak to that and kind of augment off of the Rear Admiral's comments?
Absolutely. So, the high level impact really is contained within the numbers that I shared with you at the very opening of our conversation. That $55.2 billion contribution to the San Diego gross regional product in fiscal 21, that represents 25% of the San Diego region's total economy. 25% directly traced to defense-related spending. For fiscal 21, that was a 5.4% increase over last year. And of course, that supports the 349,000 jobs here in the San Diego region. That is 23% of all people employed in the San Diego region. So significant impact. I think what's also really interesting to think about is how that trajectory plays out into the future. Admiral Barnett talked about kind of the mid-range plan of the growth of forces here in the San Diego region. If we look out even farther, we see that innovation is really central to the impact of military activity and defense-related spending right here. Innovation, frankly, is central to the effectiveness and the success of our armed forces. If that wasn't the case, then you could look out into San Diego Harbor, which I see represented here in so many pictures. If it wasn't the case, then when you look out at the harbor, you would see a fleet of wooden sailing ships with cannons sticking out the sides. Obviously, that's not our Navy today. Our Navy is a high-tech force, as is our Air Force, as is our Army, as is our Coast Guard and Marine Corps. Those efforts grow to be huge, the $55 billion, but they start very small. One example of that, and we're actually going to dig into this, I think, a little deeper in this year's report. One aspect of that is the Navy's efforts around autonomous surface sea vessels. And we're not talking little radio-controlled boats. These are ships that drive themselves through the ocean and do the things that ships that are normally manned by 100, 200, 300, 400 person crews can do. Looking at the Navy's long-range fleet plan, and I'm going from memory on this, so if I'm a little off, please forgive me. But if looking at the Navy's long-range fleet plan, by 2045, the component of the Navy surface fleet that will be autonomous vehicles is forecast to be somewhere between 18 and 23%. That's a huge number. How that's relevant to San Diego is that San Diego is one of 2 fleet concentration centers for autonomous naval vessels. And in fiscal 22, a little over $400 million, $434 million was requested by the Navy to staff up and to support the operations of these 2 fleet concentration centers for autonomous vehicles. You can imagine that when we grow to a quarter of the fleet being autonomous vehicles, a significant number of those vehicles are going to be home ported here in San Diego, and they will be contributing to that tens of billions of dollars to the regional economy.
Absolutely. And another plug to make sure you check the chat for the link to that study. It's important to know the impact that these industries have on our region and our workforce. And I think in the interest of time, I'd like to ask one more question to you, Derek, and really bring this kind of innovation question right home is what caused your company to choose to relocate to San Diego from Minneapolis beyond the fact that you all were cold?
I'm actually from Nebraska, so I'm not quite as cold as the Minneapolis folks, but we're still cold up there. Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the CEO, Jason Hannon, is from here, from San Diego. But I think the biggest driver for us is the talent that's actually in this area. So I mentioned some of the companies there. There is a small, hub of medical technology here, specifically around, spinal technologies, neurostimulator. I mean, there is a lot of savvy engineers, a lot of the business-minded folks. There is just a lot of talent here, and that certainly is one of the things I want to bring up. I mean, the ability, a lot of those companies are more up in North County, but to be able to pull from that group, as well as the local San Diego, you mentioned the young professionals that are here in San Diego specifically. I mean, that's why we're here, that those folks seem to be very interested in med tech, and just a big pool of the population that we can go to, frankly, to help serve the interest of the organization. So definitely that. Weather certainly is part of that as well. Like there's nothing wrong with when you're flying, surgeons out here to do a training lab. If you're flying them to Minneapolis in December, it's a little less appealing than if you're flying to San Diego. So.
Well, we absolutely would like, as Julie would probably say right now, all of those meetings to happen in San Diego. Bring your friends and we can find some spots for you all to meet. So on that note, it has been my pleasure to moderate this panel today. What an incredible group of leaders you all are, making sure that our base economy is well supported. And I want to just make sure that you all know in the chat, there was the SD Max study, the San Diego Tech Report, which was released last week, the San Diego Tourism Authority's annual report for FY21, as well as the Fast Facts. And a shout out to the Downtown Partnership for allowing me to be here this morning, and a plug for the Downtown Demographic Study. So I'd like to turn this back over to Betsy, and thank you.
Well, thank you all so much. I was really energized by the panel this morning, and I love college students. Cliff Notes and coffee, it's perfect. My kids, the supply chain hit them when they couldn't get boba, my high schoolers. So it's always somebody, right? But I want to, first of all, I want to invite all of you, because I want to host all of you in all of your different organizations. You can be my guest at my table on March 24th to Create the Future. That's where we honor the makers, the doers, and the people really making downtown San Diego just an amazing place to be. So I want all of you to sit at my table, but we're happy to host your groups and everything else. That's the point of the Downtown Partnership, to get everybody around the table and to have these really important conversations to really advance the economic prosperity and cultural vitality of downtown San Diego. So I heard a lot about energy, thriving, resiliency, tenacity, and thank you, Admiral Barnett. I hadn't really ever thought about it in that way. Talent, flexibility, innovation, the importance of diversity and equity as we move forward. And I really appreciate everyone here today. Christina did an amazing job, because there's so much energy and so much knowledge here. She kept us on track. We had Rear Admiral Barnett. Welcome back to San Diego. We're so happy to have you and your wife and your kids when they're not at college here, and maybe they'll all come and get jobs at Mainstay Medical with Derek and his group. And it's so nice to have Professor Meyer here, and all of the data that was available with SD Mac and with all of the reports. It was amazing. And Julie Coker with the San Diego Tourism Authority and her 1,000 members and everything they are doing for the city. I saw a convention here yesterday. I was walking around downtown, and the gas lamp was full and the restaurants were full, and it was really nice to have that energy. And of course, Neil Bloom, the person of all things. I read all of I listen to your podcast, I read your newsletter. I'm so excited for your VC fund and your real emphasis on diversity and equity when you're looking at who to invest in. So we really appreciate everything that you're doing as well. So we hope you like the program as much as we did. We had a really robust audience, and of course we're recording it. We're going to send it out to even more people, so this message will go far and wide. We want to invite you to our Downtown Innovation Center. If you or your companies or your organizations want to come check it out, it really is a very good, powerful technology tool to tell the story of downtown San Diego and the region, and we'd love to host you and your groups. So keep an eye out for our next Founder Circle. And with that, Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for being here today.